A very good morning and welcome to the business update segment of our Morning at NTV. The hashtag on Twitter is Morning at NTV. We are also streaming live on Facebook as well as on YouTube. In our business update, we are talking supporting micro, small and medium enterprises growth in the economy. Just a preamble as we get underway, many businesses face the risk of existing capital for the smooth flow. This trade development and risks many out of business due to unsustainability to stand in the continuity process. The risk has vividly been reflected, especially during COVID-19, and continues to affect many businesses. In November 22nd, the National Social Security Fund Hi-Innovator was one of the partnerships that were put together as part of the Innovation Week to engage several ecosystem stakeholders on unlocking this missing link. Now, to survive in business is, well, business itself. This morning, we are joined by Alex Rumanyika, the Head of Strategy at National Social Security Fund, as well as John Ndabarasa, the Growth Lead at International Trade Center, to help us wade through these turbulent economic waters. Welcome to the program, gentlemen, and a very good morning. Aiming at supporting Uganda's small and growing businesses, NSSF Hi-Innovator program has been scaled up. I do want some detail on this particular initiative. Let me begin with Mr. Alex Rumanyika.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you for hosting us. Yes, if you look at Uganda today, we face a number of problems as a country, but one of the biggest ones is unemployment.
Yeah, sure.
And to address it as an organization, we felt that rather than wait to see businesses struggle and come through the pipeline, we'd rather intervene to see where they are having their biggest struggle. And we found that the struggle is really between when they've proven a concept and when they need to grow. Yeah. So banks and the traditional financing avenues are not ready for those very SMEs that you've referred to. And so we've decided to intervene in that space. Yeah.
And how does this blend effectively with the Innovation Week?
Well, NSSF's role is to be a catalyst and a unifier of the ecosystem. That is where we're not by any means an expert in the startup ecosystem. Our role is just to catalyze.
That's right.
So we're just working with the partners in the ecosystem to try and find means of making it more vibrant and dynamic.
All right. When you say you're not the guys who have the much needed not resources as such, but you speak of partners, and I believe Growth Lead. You're the partners here who know the nitty-gritty of how businesses operate, what constraints and how best those constraints can be overcome. So what is your specific role in this initiative?
Well, I think, thank you very much again for hosting us. As ITC, we have been a part of the Innovation Week for, 4 years now? We started out in 2018, and one of the biggest focus for us was how we can bring funding into the country.
Okay.
When you look at most of the tech startups, we work with digital entrepreneurs.
That's right.
And so two of the biggest challenges is, one, the capacity building is not up to standard, was initially not up to standard. But thanks to partners like NSSF and a few others, including Startup Uganda, companies are now trained on basic business fundamentals, from business modeling to value propositions. But also there's a critical element of funding, where most startups here are underfunded, most especially women-led small businesses. I was just reading a report the other day, and I think under 2% of the total funding that came to Africa, only 2% came to, even under 2% came to women-owned businesses. So I think for us, our role has been how we can work together in partnership with other ecosystem players to kind of bridge the gap, between not leaving women entrepreneurs behind, but also how we could bridge the fundraising gap among small businesses. And so we've been able to support our companies to participate in global events, like Slash in Finland. Tomorrow we have a delegation going to Finland to attend one of the biggest tech conferences in the world, with the hope of finding investors, potential partners, and buyers. And that's really aligned with this year's theme of Innovation Week, which is identifying the missing links and closing them. So women and funding, that's really what has been created.
I'm glad that women have been made a very focal recipient for this particular funding initiative. But looking at the funding infrastructure across the continent, what I read and see is something that targets the high-end tech business startups, and more so when you speak about angel investors, guys coming up with crowdfunding initiatives. It involves the people who are up there, the elite, and yet you are talking of the fact that women are affected and don't receive this kind of funding, yet they are at the bottom end of the business structure. How are you integrating that rollout to ensure that they do not feel like, hey, this is something that is for those elite, not necessarily ours, because there is that tendency in Africa? How are you structuring this initiative?
Well, I mean, and you know, it's not just a Ugandan problem, right? So it's across the region. Yeah. One of the things that we always try to do is how do we balance out support and give male founders and female founders the same opportunity. The same opportunity. So whether it comes to things as simple as capacity building, so training and skilling, we focus a lot on women entrepreneurs. So they're always, and I don't think it's just ITC, but so many other agencies are pushing for this agenda of making sure that women-owned businesses are put at the forefront of making decisions in business. So a lot of the companies that we are supporting, luckily, I mean, unfortunately, are not women-founded.
They're not women-founded.
And so it's just to kind of try to encourage partnerships. Like in ITC, we have a program called She Trades that is entirely focused on supporting women-owned businesses in digital skilling, in linkages to investment, in linkages to partnerships. So I think there's been a deliberate effort from us and even from the ecosystem. I think Alex will speak on the efforts that NSSF is pushing forth. But for us, it's just deliberate. It's making sure that we have a representation of women-owned businesses. That means also growing a local angel investor scene, which for us is still really lacking in Uganda, unlike other countries like Nigeria, Kenya, and South Africa. And that's to our disadvantage, unfortunately, because if we don't have a solid local angel investing platform, it's difficult to convince foreign investors to come into the ecosystem. Okay. So I think that is where the missing link is how do we bridge the gap between the woman, the investor, and the partners and the ecosystem players.
Yeah, NSSF as a pension scheme deals very much with a plethora of clients, and many women are, of course, clients in that sense. However, there are initiatives that are outside of the your clients, the mainstream people who are able to bring in some of this money, and you're seen to support these very often. What particular strategy helps capture the intentions of the International Trade Center, and how best they want to be able to reach those people that are unreachable? Not necessarily because there isn't the rollout, but they exclude themselves sometimes, including women.
Yeah. So I like the point you brought out in the beginning about kind of the way funding is biased towards the more exposed aspects of our society. One of the things that we've done with the Hi-Innovator, which which deliberately we are partnering with the MasterCard Foundation.
MasterCard is also a partner.
MasterCard Foundation is a matching partner. So we've put in $5 million. MasterCard Foundation have put in $5 million. And we've deliberately created a strategy that 70% of the beneficiaries will be women. So it's deliberate. So one of the things we found out in the rollout of the program, in the first cohort that we did, the participation rate was just 20%. In the next cohort, we have improved it, it's now 40%. But one of the things we found out is that when you're designing programs, you need to do it from a human-centered approach. And women-run businesses are different. So rather than create something and impose it on them, we've gone to them and said, what is it that you need? And we found there are some small differences. For instance, even on training, you need to provide spaces where they can have...
some of them come with the babies.
Exactly. Things like that. Even the sectors, for instance, there's a bias towards digital and things like that, and agriculture, which women are tending not to get into.
That's right.
So we've included fashion and beauty.
That's because it's still largely physical.
Yes. So we've included things like fashion and beauty in our program. And then also just trying to design things very, very deliberately for their specific needs. And we found that the traction we're getting is much, much better, just because we're trying to do it from an outside-in approach.
All right, International Trade Center, you bring a global perspective to a local way of doing things in terms of business. In Africa, there is a tendency to grapple with our corporate governance, and many times when you introduce strict rules of doing things, people begin to feel like, hey, that is a bit of a constraint. How are you managing to deal with the mindset issue?
Well, I think corporate governance has been a huge issue among MSMEs in Uganda. There is lack of structure, first of all, and structure and systems. So you find a lot of startups or entrepreneurs that start small businesses of maybe fresh graduates, or they've never worked in a big organization, so they don't understand systems and structures and reporting mechanisms and things of this nature. And one of the things that we have deliberately done as ITC is ISO certification, for instance, for the IT and BPO companies. And what this does is completely changes the mindset and culture of the company. So, for instance, ISO 9001, you have to follow a specific order. If you want to export, say, to Europe or another advanced country, you must be producing products at a very high level, following proper systems, having legit HR systems, having maybe proper financial modeling systems and structures and things of this nature. So it's been a cost-sharing basis for us. We get companies and tell them, okay, we're going to do ISO, for instance, 9001 on quality management systems. You need to bring 50% of the cost, and we're going to meet you halfway. So that way, it almost drives the companies to know that there is actually value in the services that we're providing.
That's right.
So I think it really starts with a mindset shift, and it grows from time to time. But also, there's a lot of peer learning among the businesses, where we're bringing the more exposed companies or the more mature companies to speak with the younger ones.
That's right.
Or have companies for more exposed ecosystems like Kenya, like I mentioned, to come in and interact with the Ugandans. Or even the exposure of making sure that the companies are attending international conferences, regional conferences, kind of gives them that exposure to know that, oh, things are actually done in a specific way. We have to report in a certain way. We have to speak to our employees in a certain way.
That's right.
So I think it's
okay. This one will go to Mr. Alex from NSSF. How is the whole process being handled in terms of who joins and what criteria is there? Because people will be looking at it and they're like, there goes another high-end program. That one has already been selected for some people. Is it open to an average Chris Higeni?
Absolutely. So the program is designed really in a very democratic way.
Okay.
So you might be someone who's just starting business, then you're welcome to just learn. So we have an online academy where you can just learn, so that you don't make the mistakes that other people have made, and it's completely free. Then there's a program for those who, the so-called missing middle.
Established.
Yes, they have established, they have some traction, So those ones are welcome now to apply for the funding. So you need to be registered. So we're trying to establish the mindset shift, like John said. You have to be registered with URSB, Uganda
Registration Service.
Yes, NSSF and URA. So we're telling them immediately from the onset.
Oh, wait a minute. Registered with NSSF, as in you are depositing to the scheme?
Yes.
What's the dynamic there?
So the way it works is that for you to get into this program, we're not saying that you should already be paying your contributions, but you should register. And because the new law requires all businesses to register.
That's right.
Yes. So you must be compliant with the law. Yeah. And then, yes, once you have those requirements, then you go through the pre-accelerator program. It's a learning program. And you apply. Your application is vetted before an independent investment committee. And then, based on the decision, based on your strategy and things like that, you're qualified for funding.
Okay.
Yeah.
There is the aspect of voluntary, the ability to be able to put money in SSF voluntarily if you are a mom and pop shop owner, like a 35-year-old young woman with 2 children.
Yes.
Yeah. How does that fund?
So, I mean, with these kind of programs, really, we have to be deliberate in who we are selecting, because we're looking for 3 things. We're looking for sustainability, we're looking for impact, and we're looking for scale, because ultimately that's what creates jobs.
That's right.
Yeah. So you're looking for businesses that can provide you with those 3 things. And really, if you're ticking those boxes, you should be looking at being compliant, really.
Sure.
So there are ecosystem players who are looking to support the really micro SMEs in that space, but we're really looking to be a catalyst. How can we really create resilient and businesses that can have impact? Because that's where the jobs are going to come from. Yeah.
Talking of innovation, after COVID-19, many businesses were put out of action, so to speak, and then the whole scenario or dilemma again created opportunities for innovators to come and be able to do business and provide the much needed services, including products. When you speak about innovation within the aegis of NSSF and all the interventions that are going on, what is the thrust? Are we seeing NSSF as an anchor for especially the young population that is the majority in Uganda to be able to adopt business practices that are tech heavy and are able to position themselves available for the funding that ITC provides?
Absolutely. So I mean, our purpose as NSSF is to make lives better. And
wow.
and really that includes targeting young people who are aiming to start businesses. So one of the things that you'll see in the program is, one, yes, the tech heavy is important because technology is an enabler.
An enabler, yeah.
But what we're really looking at ultimately is, can we create jobs for young people?
Yeah.
Dignified jobs. And that's going to come from creating successful businesses. So a lot of the businesses that we've actually been supporting are upcountry. We've got a number of businesses that have come from upcountry. And the statistics so far says that we are sustaining so far 20,000 jobs, direct and indirectly. So as long as you've packaged your business in a way that it can grow, and we are working with enterprise support organizations to support you. So they support you directly. So we don't just fund you and leave you there. Yeah, we have a network of right now about 7 enterprise support organizations. We plan to expand it to 20.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. ITC, there is, of course, ITC being International Trade Center. When I do the initials, somebody out there could be confused about it. As a growth lead, the African continent right now is in a bit of too many fits and starts. So many people are told this is what is going to take you forward, this is what is going to take, and you find the young people often, well, trying out this and the other, and not knowing exactly where the money is, because it's important for them. They want to know, where is the money as we do business? How do you structure, or not structure? What would be the advice for the young people out there who are watching?
So that's a very good question. I think one of the challenges that we have with startups that are just starting out is they very quickly think that funding or capital, is what is needed to get the ball rolling. When in actual sense, it is not. So what we always encourage the small businesses to do is first and foremost design and develop a proof of concept. Proof of concept means,
what?
Sorry?
Proof of concept.
So you develop a prototype and make sure that your community or your customer is able to adapt to it, is able to use it. Now, then you have to follow a trend of organic growth. That means you have to learn how to acquire customers, you have to learn how to retain customers. At that point, that's when we start introducing the businesses to investment, because then the return on investment is a little bit clearer to investors. Most of the investors want either equity in your business, or they're going to give you debt or a loan or something like this, but they want to be sure that they're going to get their money back. And so we have a lot of investment readiness programs where we train startups how to pitch their businesses, how to speak to investors, how to qualify and talk to the right investors. A lot of them will talk to investors in different sectors. So if you're in agriculture, you have to make sure that you're speaking to somebody that's investing in agriculture. If you're in tech, same thing. So just not to mix that up is very, very critical and important.
All right, Alex Rumanyika, in a minute, you are the vehicle for the NSSF Hi-Innovator program. Your last words and a wrap on this.
Last words, really. First thing is that we aim to be a catalytic program. So we're working with people who can provide 2 times or 3 times what we are doing. So MasterCard Foundation is there. We provided 5, they've provided 5. That is 2 times. We'll get other such partners. The second thing is really we're looking for impact, especially around women. And so women and jobs. So we're looking at businesses that can address that space of creating jobs. So if your value proposition can address a big social need, we're looking for you. The third thing is that we'll be unveiling something special in Uganda Innovation Week. So please watch that space, and we look forward to seeing you there.
All right. Thank you very much, Alex Rumanyika, Head of Strategy at the National Social Security Fund, as well as John Ndabarasa, a Growth Lead at the International Trade Center. Many thanks for the insight and perspective on business and the NSSF Hi-Innovator program. Now,